Good morning, everyone. Good morning. This is TJ with the Legit Real Estate Podcast. I got to confess that this is take two because the first time I started it off, I said Holly's last name wrong, and it's so bad because it's something I make a conscious effort not to do. Holly Regoli, how are you this morning?
I am great because I'm
You're
not
a
Holly
different color pink
Regali.
because I just we're both blushing because that was embarrassing. I don't screw it up that often. How you doing this morning? All good?
I am great. You wouldn't believe how many people say it as that. And I'm like, I really would not have taken that last name. I would have found some way to hyphenate my old last name and combined it somehow if it really rhymed like
Your
that.
husband's Italian, and your in-laws would not let you hyphenate your name. That's not a thing we do.
Mm.
We
But if it
do, you know,
rhymed, there's no way I would have stuck with
rhyming
Holly Regali.
rhyming names are tough. Um, yeah, I get it. I get it. So I was trying to think of something cool to do, right? Because again, we're not going to sit here and talk about interest rates because I don't think anyone cares. Well, people care, they can go somewhere else for it. But I'm looking at all these nightmare home inspections, and I think home inspections are wild, especially if you're doing like the longer the people have been there, the more likely it is they kind of like, Bob Vila their own projects. Like I know my grandfather thinks that duct tape is the only skill you need. Like anytime something leaks, we're just gonna duct tape it. Like if he was so he's 94, if he was born late, if Flex Seal was invented in my grandfather's life, the whole house would just be Flex Seal. Because he uses like electric tape on everything. Like he's
Hmm.
never called a plumber. As a
Oh
matter of
my
fact,
gosh.
there was a leak, and I called my plumber to go to his house, and we spent more time trying to find a razor blade to cut all the electric tape off the
Oh
leak
no.
because he just kept rapping. I mean, that's what people do.
Hmm.
So if you don't mind, I've got some stories over here that are interesting.
Oh, I definitely want to hear them.
I know, you know, in the future, I'm going to learn how to share pictures, but because I feel like the pictures would go a long way on this. But here's a guy in his kitchen, or it's either a kitchen or a bathroom because all I can see is tile. And he's got, those strips, those electrical strips.
Hmm.
So he's got that, and he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 things plugged into
Oh
each
my
other,
God.
plugged into each other, plugged into each other. And the caption on this is funny because it says, well, at least they kept all the tags on saying there was a shock hazard. I mean, this is definitely, I'm not even going to say it's a guy. This is
Oh my
definitely a
God.
woman. It's definitely a woman because I
It
see hair straightener. No, that's it.
it
The
doesn't
light,
have to be a woman.
you know any guys that straighten their hair in the bathroom?
Oh, the straightener? I don't know, but who's to
Yeah.
say she doesn't share a bathroom with a guy? I mean, in my house, we have
All
two
right. Name one
bathrooms.
thing that I got. Okay. Does your husband have anything plugged in the bathroom?
Yes, because he has a beard trimmer and well, he doesn't leave it plugged
Okay.
in.
Of course not, because he knows. He doesn't want
Yeah.
to burn the house down. Well, we got a hair straightener. I'm trying to even think of what else that could be. Probably an electric toothbrush. This looks like a TV cord, if I'm not mistaken. This adapter over here is for a phone charger. I mean, this lady's just living in the bathroom, and she's like, "Here's what we're doing. We're plugging everything into this outlet that holding up." Yeah,
And that was
I'm
found
surprised it
during a
didn't.
home inspection.
To me, and this is crazy. I don't feel like that should be part of the home inspection because to solve that problem, all you have to do is unplug everything and you're done.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say I learned a lot on home inspections.
Am I,
You know,
am I
I could I could definitely see the inspector saying, "Do not do this when you own your home."
okay? It is all right. So that would be a helpful tip. I see. But there's nothing wrong with the outlet. Apparently the outlet's doing great if it can hold all this power.
I'd say so. But yeah,
So
I,
this
I
guy,
definitely find inspections to be a good lesson, especially when you have first time home buyers. There's a lot of things that they're not used to seeing because it's the first time they're going to be owning a home. So I really do love it when the inspectors explain to them it's not necessarily about finding all of the issues with a home, but explaining to the buyers on how things work and how they should work, shouldn't look, all of the above.
That's a really good point. Because if you ask a typical high school kid, say that, he doesn't know how his house works. Like
No.
I didn't know how my house worked when I was little. It's just all I know is the lights go on, the lights go off, and there's food in the fridge. Like I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
how to diagnose a problem or where to even look if there was a problem. Dad handled all of that. But then when you buy your first house and you have to know how things work, or else when something goes wrong, you don't even know where to look to fix it. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the really good home inspectors do that. And the super good ones will give you the useful life for certain things in your house
Yeah. Yep. That's
because
very helpful.
everything's going to live a certain amount of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, this guy right here. Oh, this is awesome. He used, is that a water bottle? This guy used a water bottle. He had a leaking. Hold on, I'm trying to read more. I shouldn't be doing this right now. Oh, okay. So it's like a drain cap that comes down, and
Mm-hmm.
instead of sealing off, the drain cap will have like an elbow. Instead of sealing it off with like proper materials, he just
Mm-hmm.
jammed a water bottle in there.
Oh, geez.
So,
So you're talking about like
so it
under a sink?
yeah, he's got a water bottle under the sink that's pretty much acting as the trap.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's not.
that's not okay.
During a recent inspection, when the toilet was flush, it's not under a sink, that's under a toilet, it's in the basement. When the toilet was flush, the bottle would pop out and whatever you were flushing would shoot out the side of the pipe.
Oh, no, no, no. That's gross.
And then what, you would go back and like do it again? Were you an idiot?
So you'd have to put the bottle back every time you. That was like,
Yeah.
oh, we have a problem. Let's fix this really quick before the home inspector gets here.
Yeah, with a water. Maybe he
Fix.
won't see it.
Fix. I don't get
Maybe he
that.
won't see it. I'll tell you, I'm looking through and it looks like most of the issues are people doing their own plumbing.
Yeah. You know, I
There's a lot
had
of plumbing.
I had an issue. Okay. So I know in the past I brought up one of my last flips. I had an inspector that I said I will never have back because they missed the electrical that was cut through, like the lights weren't working. They should have looked beyond that and found that all the wires were cut. But one of the other things was is that I had a crawl space in that house. And they said, and then there were these little windows, like picture a basement window, they're smaller, but there wasn't windows there, it was just openings in the concrete around the foundation of the crawl space around the
Yep.
house. And they were covered with metal screens. And they said, well, there's water getting in there. You're going to want to close these up so water doesn't get in here. Um, and you're going to want to probably put a vapor barrier or whatever. So I closed up. I had somebody put concrete blocks in, completely seal and close up. Now now I thought I did what I was supposed to do because that's what the inspector told me I needed to do. Well, when somebody went to buy the house from me, they said, well, you have a crawl space down there and there's no access to the crawl space. And now that you don't have there's no ventilation either. So now it can't breathe. There's no airflow underneath there. You've closed off all the airflow underneath there by sealing up the side of the foundation. So
Uh,
by listening to my inspector, I made it a worse situation downstairs because then I found out the water was not getting in from the holes from the windows. It was getting in because the groundwater was high, so it would come up and under the foundation. So you had dirt there.
oh, so you solved a problem that didn't exist and created a bigger problem.
So then I had to cut a hole in the floor from inside the house and then go down there and put a
Oh,
vapor barrier down. And that was a nightmare because here I am. I am arachnophobic as all all hell. I'm better now that I live in Foster and we have giant spiders over here. I'm not as bad. I can deal with the small ones now. But in that crawl space, which was in not far from here, there was big spiders like in this. I was so afraid. And now I had one little hole I had to cut in the floor to get in, and I had to vapor barrier the entire basement. And the ceiling height was 3 feet in some spots and about 4 feet in other spots. So there was no easy, quick way to get out there, and you've got all the dirt on there. It was
you got
one of the
whoever built the
worst things,
nest place.
one of the worst things I've ever had to do in my entire life. Not fun.
So we I'm not scared of spiders. My wife is, and one of my sons, which is strange. But I don't like bees. Like, I just don't like them. Well, anyway, we've got a pool house, and I say a pool house. Don't think it's anything fancy. It keeps the filter in there, but there is a set of stairs that bring you up to the top, and up top, the guy's got some stuff stored up there, and I'm going to build it into a playhouse for my kids when they get a little bit older. A place where they can go and get in trouble and their mother doesn't catch them. But the home inspection doesn't cover exterior buildings like that.
Hmm.
So when I had the home inspection here, it was after I bought the house. Then I had a home inspection just for what we talked about earlier. I just wanted a to-do list. Like I just wanted someone to go places I didn't feel like going and take pictures I wasn't going to take and give me a to-do list. So
Hmm.
he gave me a professional discount. I think he did it for like $100 in an Italian grinder, where he usually charges like $675. So when he said he doesn't do exterior buildings, if I was paying full price, I would have been like, can you do me a professional favor and go do that building for me? But I didn't
Yeah.
do that. And he wasn't charging me, so I didn't care. Well, anyway, now I'm in the house. I walk up the stairs. Now the stairs, it was basically just enough to get my shoulders through. It's not like a set of stairs you walk up.
Yeah.
When I stuck my head up there, I'm not lying. It was a 2-foot hornet's nest. That thing has
Oh,
for years. You could just tell it was so big that when I took a picture of it and put it on Facebook, somebody offered me money for it because I guess that was like a hobby of theirs, was like to display and preserve.
oh my
Because
God.
the architecture of hornets, it's like, I don't know if you've ever seen a hornet's nest, but
Mm.
they do such a magnificent job. And I guess the guy cuts them in half and then he preserves them. But anyway, the guy said it was one of the biggest ones he ever seen. I was face to face with it, and
Oh,
like you could just hear it. Like
oh, oh.
and man, I wanted to jump. I wanted to jump so bad, and I wasn't going to pay someone to do it. So my strategy was, at night I would go in there with my flashlight and I would marinate it in hornet spray I stopped counting after 100 bodies fell. There were
Oh,
hundreds of them. But yeah, the home inspector didn't see it, but had he done it, poor bastard.
you don't have inspectors
Anyway, this
for the
guy,
outside buildings?
no, they don't do sheds. It's a shed. I mean, it has power in it, and it has a filter, so there's power, but and lights. But they don't do the outside buildings, or at least this guy didn't.
Most of my inspectors will check all the buildings on the property.
Sheds, garages, like
Yeah,
garages detached.
yeah,
No shit. Pools.
yeah. I'll have to give you my guy. Like I mean, every inspector I've ever had has always checked all the buildings.
This guy was not doing it,
Yeah.
and he wasn't barely charging me, so I couldn't even tell him.
Yeah.
But this one's actually more common than you'd think. People, um, this looks like they're using rocks and boulders to like support the main beam because someone cut out where they shouldn't have. You seen that where people
Mm.
especially in stone found or older houses, where they start wedging things? Actually, that's
Hmm.
in Rhode Island. That's what we do at our bridges. We just wedge
Yeah,
bricks.
yeah. Yeah, so in the basement, you've got the main post or the beams that go across onto the stone foundations. And so I've seen those beams, they're cut because they needed to add something there or whatnot, and that's scary.
It is because I mean, it happens slow then fast, right? When floors go, and I've never seen one blow all the way out, but like it happens slow, and you'll start to notice the warped floor. But then once it's gonna go, it's gonna go. And I saw some cool dude on YouTube was showing it with like to scale models, and he was showing how your why those beams are important. Like they're supposed to be every 8 feet apart or whatever. If you don't have them, eventually crack. Well, anyway, this guy, instead of wedging a brick or a stone, he used tiles,
Like ceramic tiles.
like ceramic tiles, because we all know how strong ceramic tiles are,
Oh yeah,
that they can.
that's awful.
Um, question: New construction. Do you have your clients get a home inspection on new construction
Yeah,
every time, right?
yeah, yeah. Well,
And the
because
listing agent will
again,
say,
it goes to the education of it too, especially if they're first time home buyers. You want to know how things operate. Newer homes now have newer technology and everything else. There's things I don't know how they operate.
It's true. I remember the first time trying to figure out how like tankless hot water would work. Like it just never made sense to me. Like when that became a new thing, and now it's
Hmm.
kind of like everybody has tankless hot water whenever they do an upgrade. Well, this one here, so your sink or your bathtub, this is the bathtub. So your bathtub drains down through your bathroom floor if your bathroom's on the second floor, and it drains into a pipe on the basement, and that pipe discharges to your septic or to the sewer, right?
Hmm.
Well, I captured this photo in a crawl space. The builder forgot to connect the bathtub to the drain, and the town signed off on it. So
Ooh.
the home inspector starts running the bathtub, and the water's going directly into the basement.
Oh. Yeah, that's not good.
That's not good. That's on new
No.
construction. And again, how easy is it to waive inspections on new construction? Buyers want to do it all the time.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
I
Oh,
why
they
don't
figure that people signed
I
off on
understand
it. It's
system?
brand new. There's no need. I don't know. I still recommend inspections.
Because you'll see stuff like that. Like, no, it's an honest mistake, right? It's an honest mistake. The plumber forgot to do it. Actually, I just sold a new construction in Providence last week, and again, they had a home inspection, and he found most of the things he found were like with grading and sloping, and there was a retainer wall, and they wanted to make sure we could provide the plans for the retaining wall and all this stuff. There was really nothing wrong with the house except for there was no vent for the dryer.
No vent for the
So
dryer?
there was no vent at all. They forgot to put it in the laundry room. So you had a laundry room, and it's easy enough, right? You're building it, you seal the wall. Well, when this guy went to go get a dryer, where are you going to vent it to? You can't vent it into the kitchen, right? It was right off the
Yeah.
kitchen. And my guy, my builder went back there, and he put the dryer because we're dealing with human beings.
Yeah. And people make mistakes. That's what happens.
They do. All right, what do we got? We got foundation cracks. Holy shit! Some of these you can like drive a bike through. Foundation cracks are if they're going this way, they're bad. If they're going this way, they're common, right? Especially around here.
Hmm.
I'm sure if I take the wall behind me down, there's cracks in the foundation, but that can definitely scare a buyer.
You want to hear an interesting fact? Not far from here in Connecticut, for every part of Connecticut, we have to have a crumbling foundation disclosure because at one point, and I'm gonna mess up the time period for this. I think it was from like the 80s to like 2001 or 2002. There was a quarry that was putting out stuff that had, I think it's called Pyrex in it. There's a certain thing, a certain component in the concrete that causes crumbling foundation. So the houses that were built during that period of time in that part of Connecticut, and this is more like, so let's see, we have Ellington, Tallinn County, like Tallinn County, I think it is. That area more is where the stuff was coming from. So all the houses that we look at over there, you have to have a special disclosure. A lot of them have had to be inspected to tell what level it is. And I have had clients actually buy a house with a crumbling foundation. And there was a grant from the, or as a fund from the state that is used to repair it. So they literally have to jack up the house, take out the whole foundation and replace it. And you have to get on a list.
Good.
Yep.
That must cost $1 billion.
Yeah, and so it devalues the houses that are part of that group. So if you're buying it, you got to kind of be in for the long haul. And at one point when we had done it, they filed, and then I think the money had dried up. But I don't know if they renew it every so many years. I haven't looked in that area in a while, so I have to get back up to date on that. But that's something you have to watch out for. And if you're working in an area you're not familiar with, you have to know to check for those things.
Wow. Yeah, imagine putting a guy in a house and the foundations like turn into dust.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
They say crumbling foundation. I will say the ones that I've seen were not really crazy falling apart. The ones my client bought, I think, were like a grade 2 or something. And it was just like because of moisture, you could see more cracks in it and stuff like that. So over time, it's just going to get worse. But these are things like you wouldn't ever think of this. I didn't know about that working in different parts of Connecticut or in Rhode Island until I got into that part. And I was like, what's this? What's this disclosure?
You know, something else. We're talking about home inspections. That's why you also need to have a home inspection. I'm not saying they have to be a neighborhood specialist like a realtor might have to be, but a home inspection that knows that. Like if I drag one of my guys in from Rhode Island on a one-off situation to that part of Connecticut, what's the chances they know about that to even look at it?
Probably
Like here, you
not.
look at what we look at, like we look for termites and whatnot, right? Because they exist here, or we look for seepage and stone. We have a lot. If you go to other parts of the country, I'd imagine they have different things that are more common there
Mm-hmm.
than here. In this part of the country, we finish our basements. So because we finish our basements all the time, you can almost not see. Like I'm looking around my house right now, I can only see about 2 feet of the whole foundation, and that's just where my panel is.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is covered. Other parts of the country, you have full access. You can see everything. You can see. I can have cracks over here. Well, how would I know, right?
Yeah.
But if you go out of state, there's different things. A crumbling foundation is one I had never heard of.
Yeah. And that's literally, I mean, my client's house is 45 minutes from where I am, 40 minutes or so. And it's that whole area.
What's interesting about your town? It's an old town, and
Mm-hmm.
there's actually it's a historic house in North Providence, and I took a tour of it. Wicked cool. It had tunnels going out the back, and the tunnels would be like, I don't know, a quarter of the mile, and it was to smuggle the friggin' slaves in that were
Mm-hmm.
escaping. Like it was part of the Underground Railroad. And wild. Like you go in there, every room had a fireplace because there was no lights when they built it. There's no power.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, the foundation was stone, and that house is rock solid
Yeah. Yep.
with a stone foundation. I've got clients, I don't know if you do that, are like, I don't want to look at anything with a stone foundation. And it's like, okay, the house has been here for 500 years. You think it's going to fall down in the 30 you got left, buddy?
Mm-hmm.
But that's a thing. Stone foundation. Do you have a stone foundation?
No, my house was built in the 80s.
Oh, yeah, you said that.
Yeah, but I actually had a client buy a house that was built in the 1700s. I
Hmm.
wanna say they may have said George Washington stayed there at one point. I could be wrong. But it was a really, really, really old house.
Let's see. Let's go back to these train wrecks over here. These people. It's all do-it-yourself jobs. This guy's venting his boiler, his furnace right into the house. There's like no, he took the pipe down, he cut it. You can see it with a sawzall. He cut the exhaust that's supposed to bring the CO2 into the chimney. He just cut that. He didn't like it.
He didn't
And now
like
when
it.
I don't know, it doesn't say why, but there's no reason here that I would see that it would be
Can you
so.
imagine the carbon monoxide in the house?
I'm surprised he's alive to tell the story.
Oh my
But yeah,
God.
it's cut. It's not even cut clean. It's like he used like a wood hacksaw. No shit.
And that brings the point too. You don't even think
Home-
about it. There's it's a requirement to actually have chimney liners properly installed in the chimneys of your house for your exhaust for your boilers. And I've had clients where even in my house, I had taken down I accidentally took down the wrong chimney in one of my houses, but it's okay because it needed to come down anyway. Um, but I had to get a new heating system altogether because I looked into the costs of everything. We had to get the exhaust out the house properly, because it's not safe to have that not properly lined in a chimney. You've got to have proper linings.
And I'll tell you, um, I've seen them where they didn't want it to go up in this way for whatever reason, so they've kind of put, you've got to do that right. Like that's like wicked dangerous. I make fun of a lot of things people do, but like
Mhm.
CO2 is not something you want to play around with.
Mm-mm.
Um, there's a lot of pictures here of birds in the attic. I don't think anyone's scared of birds in the attic. I did have one home inspection request where it was please remove dead squirrel from attic. And so my client's looking at all this stuff. There was a bunch of things they wanted done in big dollar things, and they're like, that's the only one that they didn't want to do because they were, yeah, that grosses me out. And I'm like, yeah, but you understand that's free. Like that's the easy one to say yes to.
Yeah, that's
So,
funny.
so you know who went up there with some gloves on, right? The realtor.
Yeah,
The
how
realtor me.
many things have you taken care of that you're just like, again, it go back, we've talked about this a couple episodes before. It goes back to the kids doing stuff. It's just easier for you to just do it than to try to help them, to guide them to do it.
For real. So like how many things have I done? Much. And the better
Mhm.
I've gotten, the more knowledge I have, the more I'm willing to do, because to me it's just not a big deal.
Mhm.
One time, me and the mortgage guy, we built a whole fence. Like the fence was falling down. We went out there, built a fence. I painted God knows how much peeling paint.
Mhm.
And sometimes do that for your client. Um, and I think that's kind of part of the job. And I know a lot of people don't feel that way. I know you go above and beyond. I
Yeah,
mean, you've
well,
stored people's stuff at your house. I haven't.
you get under contract, you got to get to the closing table,
You
and
gotta get
you
it
got to
done.
roll up your sleeves sometimes, you know?
And all I ask for in that situation, remember me and refer me.
Mhm.
Like, do that. I've cut so much grass to get ready for closing. Just remember me and refer me. And I feel like I don't want to set that expectation that I'm willing to do whatever, but at the end of the refer me for doing that. Freaking
Mhm.
people. We got big ticket things over here. We've got lead paint stories, lead paint everywhere. I don't know how home inspectors can identify lead paint from working. I have my own problem with that. Knob and
Well, you
tube's a
have
big
to do a
one.
special test for that. You have to get a lead inspector or use a special kit or send stuff for analysis.
It's true, but you've never had the inspector that knows everything, because
Mm.
I have, and he can just look at that paint and tell you that that's lead paint right there.
Well, I mean,
Sure,
I
sure it is.
have been told, unless it was told wrong, there's certain paint when you look at it, the way it ships, because I'm not good at describing things, but it's a bunch of little tiny boxes, usually means that it's lead paint.
Really?
I'm not
When it's in
describing
those
that right,
squares?
but if you look at latex paint, like flakes or peels,
Okay.
or flakes of, like, in individual like pieces, I guess. But when you look at, like, I've been told, oh, this is lead paint because you look at it, and if you ever looked at it and you've got tiny, tiny, tiny little squares and everything,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I was told that that's lead paint. I could
Oh,
be
you know,
wrong, but that's what
you're
somebody
right
told
too.
me at one point, so that's
That's a
what I
good
go
tip.
by.
I always thought that meant it was like the side that's just cooking in the sun, and that's why it's peeling different than the rest. But now that I think of it, like if you go to like Broadway in Providence, like the older parts of Providence, you'll see that's how they peel. They don't peel
Mhm.
like regular paint. That's interesting. That's a good tip right there. See, we're not just telling stories, people.
No, telling stories with a little bit of
Yeah,
benefit to
there's
them.
tips over here. A lot of removed handrails. I don't know. I'm torn on the handrail thing. I know a lot of people put up a temporary handrail to satisfy the inspector, but like you rip it right out afterwards. I don't know. Handrails are
Those are
ugly
more on
sometimes.
the FHA appraisals is where I see them. I don't see too many inspectors actually pointing those out.
And or if they're really good, they'll be like, "What kind of loan is this?" before they go in. I like that. And
Yeah,
this
and I
one
always
right
tell my
here,
clients, if there's a stairwell that doesn't have a railing, I'm like, well, if you get an FHA buyer, if they say something at the appraisal, we'll deal with it then. But I'm not going to make you go and install a handrail for for a possibility of it being fine.
I'm truly at the point where I just tell people disregard the financing because we can fix whatever it is. FHA is asking for handrails and paint, like we see it.
Yep.
Um, this the number one place where home inspectors find the most structural issues. Can you guess where that would be?
The most structural issues,
The most issues.
basement.
Decks and porches,
Oh yeah, handyman special.
because most homeowners think they can do it themselves and they're not secured properly to the house. And I can so picture that.
Hmm.
You ever see the bolts that you got to put a deck on a house? Like those things
Hmm.
are, they're you don't know where to put them.
Come to think of it, 12 years ago when I bought my house, my home inspection said, we recommend that you put additional bolts into the house from the deck. I don't think we ever did. I have a
I
huge
had
deck.
one. Check this out, and it was in West Warwick. I had a client. We had the home inspection. The home inspector said, "Your deck is not secured to your house. You need to bolt the deck to the house." And the guy, there was an English barrier, but I think he knew what he was doing. He went to the store and he bought washers and bolts. He cut the head of the bolt off and he super glued the washer and bolts. So when you looked at it, it looked like there were bolts, but there were no bolts.
So he
Yeah.
just did it to guys and like pretend it
So
was there.
correct. He did not bolt the deck into the house. And actually, the buyer's agent for that, they found out, they went to the newspaper. It was a big to do.
That's a lawsuit.
That was a lawsuit.
That's a lawsuit.
It was a veteran on top of it. It was a veteran, right? So you're gonna get the paper involved when you've screwed a veteran, right? So now that's like an extra. It's bad enough to screw a regular person. You're screwing a family that this guy's out here. I think it was a woman. This woman's out here, like
Fighting for our
serving.
country, and now you're gonna screw her over.
He cut the thing off. I didn't. First of all, you know how much effort and deviousness you have to, because you can't just cut that with scissors. Like you had to.
No, just do the
And then
damn
he
bolt to the house.
So the agent ends up coming to our company, and
Our
I'm like, "Oh,
company
how are
now.
your?" Yeah, and she asked, of course, I'm making small talk, like, "Hey, how are those people that bought that house?" Oh, you're not going to believe this. And she had like pictures. They took a screwdriver. They took a screwdriver and they were just popping off what looked like a bolt in a washer. I was like, "You sons of bitches!"
Wow.
Yep. So she told me the whole story. I was embarrassed for my client. I mean, I didn't know, obviously, but
Oh.
who
I'm
was
surprised they didn't bring you back into that. Usually you get, hey, did you know this
I
happened?
know.
Like,
You know what happened? I think they recovered money somewhere somehow,
hmm
and like I think they had their own way that they handled it. Yeah, decks and porches are things that homeowners will try and do, and fire pits too.
hmm
Like everybody thinks they can do their own fire pit until they don't factor in everything you need to factor in to build a fire pit.
yeah, I'm guilty of
Yep.
that. We just throw stones in the backyard.
Just stones in a pile.
Yeah, well, we got stones and we just made it bigger. And I know the bottom, you're supposed to have some kind of fireproof thing. I don't know. We have a big fire pit.
You know where I feel like the problem is when you try and dig out. So a lot of people, you have a fire pit that's say like 4 feet, and they want to dig it out to 14 feet because it looks really cool.
hmm
But you don't know what's under the ground if you lack some brains. Like you could dig into your sewer line,
Yeah.
you can dig
True,
in
true. I'm in the woods. I know there's nothing where mine is, and I'm a little careful with that, but
horses. No horses buried in the yard.
not that I know of. I haven't found any yet. I don't have any suspicious mounds.
That was a fun episode. Hey, listen,
Was.
tell the people where to reach us. We're winding out of time here. What do you got? Where can they find us?
So they can watch us on YouTube, they can hear us on Amazon Music and Spotify, and I believe iTunes. They can send us stories to the legit real estate podcast at gmail.com. And we do have a Facebook page and Instagram too. I keep forgetting to mention those.
My Lord, you've got us everywhere. Just so everyone knows, Holly's running the show. She's doing the tech because yours truly is dumb. Hey, listen, on behalf of Holly and myself, everyone have an awesome day. We'll see you next week.
Have a
Legit
good
real estate.
one. Thanks. Bye.